Hey guys, it's T-Dub here. Um, our pastor, Pastor Billy at church, has given us a challenge to make a video of our testimonies to share, especially since we're all sitting at home. And it's just one way to kind of get out and spread the gospel to folks on social media. And it's a good thing to do. And be personally honest, it's easier for me to sit here in front and talk to my phone than it is to stand up in front of people. I have a fear of that, so this is going to make it a lot easier for me to do. With all that being said, here's the story of me, my story with Jesus. I had a great childhood, wonderful childhood. I was raised kind of like in an Ozzie and Harriet atmosphere. Great dad, wonderful mom, uh, two brothers and a sister. Let me see. I was daddy's little girl. He always made me feel special. I was his baby. Um, my oldest brother, Jeff, uh, I was also his baby. He was very, very good to me, and we had a very, very close, special relationship. Uh, he was my hero. My brother, Joe, along with Jeff, too. Uh, Joe and I were closer in age, so we kind of butted heads a little bit more. But he is such a good guy. He's an awesome guy, and him and Jeff were my protectors. You know, anytime I got myself in trouble, I could always use Joe or Jeff, threaten with Joe or Jeff, and people would leave me alone. They were my protectors. So to me, growing up, the men that I knew, even in my extended family, uh, were all these wonderful, loving beings who were could be trusted, and they were protectors. My sister Debbie, now I considered her my best friend. I just idolized her and my cousin Diane. We were together a lot when we were younger, and I was always kind of always wanted to be with them and be like them, and but I was 5 and 6 years younger than them, and so I wasn't cool to hang out with me. I was the baby, and I would be shunned and kicked out of the room, and uh, so that's how that was. But I just idolized them, loved them to pieces, and I was just the bratty little sister. Me and Debbie shared a room, and she would always get mad because I'd touch her stuff, and I'd sneak and wear her clothes, and then we'd be in fights. But that was the biggest part of it. That's about as bad as it got because we were just a close knit, a happy family. And let me see. Then came my teenage years. Let's just jump right into it. I was a horrible teenager. I was. But you know what? Not too many people know why. And a couple years ago at church, we went through Celebrate Recovery. It's a 12-step program. Don't know if you know about it. But it did open my eyes to some of the ways of why I felt the way I felt. And had a bunch of aha moments. So if I don't consider myself a recovering addict or alcoholic, and it's for everyone. So I strongly, highly suggest Celebrate Recovery. It opened up some things to me that I had no idea. Anyway, so back to that. Um, there were several instances I went through as a very young teenager. The first one was I was at a sleepover at somebody who I adored at their house, And I woke up in the middle of the night by a man standing over me. And he did something that was just gross and unacceptable to me. So I yelled out this person's name that I was staying with, yelled out their name, and the man, he told me to shut up and took off down the hall. Well, needless to say, I was in shock because I didn't know men acted like that. I was clueless. Um, so I didn't sleep the rest of the night. That morning, when as soon as we woke up, I told them I was ready to go home. And on the way home, I told them what happened, and they looked at me and they said, "No, it didn't. He did not do that." I was devastated. This person should have believed me. I didn't understand. And so when I got home, I even told my mom about it, and she told me, "Well, just don't say nothing." The gist of the conversation was, don't say anything because your daddy will end up in prison, and so will your brothers, and because they'd kill him. And uh, I didn't know about that, but I knew they were my protectors, and I knew they would have always gone to bat for me. But by telling this person, it was just so condescending, and it never crossed my mind that I wouldn't be validated. So that was my first wake up call, I guess, to the world. One of my first wake up calls. I mean, I wasn't innocent, don't get me wrong. I was not clueless, but still, I was just couldn't believe this person who I knew would act like this. Let me see. So it wasn't much after that. It was pretty much around the same time I'd gone to what I thought was a boy-girl party. I was invited by a couple of girls that I thought were my friends, and they really were. I mean, I grew up with them. And while we were there, we were invited to go back in a room, and I just figured we were going to go back there and get high or something like that, you know. I was young. I didn't know. I was just going along with it. I just wanted to be with my friends. Well, when we got in the back room, the girls left. And I was raped. And this was a boy I went to school with. Actually, it was a boy that my brother went to school with. And I couldn't handle being told it didn't happen again. And I wasn't going to tell because I didn't want my brothers or my father to get in trouble. So, you know, it seemed like a few times, maybe it's just for being a female, and maybe it was the era, but I sure found myself in situations. I mean, that never happened again, but I found myself in situations close to that. And I just really felt like I'd been betrayed by so many people that I trusted in my life. I think that's why loyalty means so much to me, and I am loyal to a fault. Trust me, my codependency ran deep. It really did. And it's caused me some problems in my life. I had my first drink of alcohol at the age of 11. And that's a story. And I didn't drink again until I was 14 years old. Was not good at it, let me tell you. But what I can tell you is it did make that sick feeling in me go away. That feeling that when I was baptized at a very young age, I was told I went in the water clean. Or in the water I was dirty, right? That's how I took it. And I came out clean. Okay? Well, I wasn't clean anymore. I was a nasty, filthy rag. And it hurt. And it just left a black hole inside of me. You know, drinking made me feel accepted by my peers. Now I knew what guys wanted. I could use that to my advantage. And I'd done some things that I'm not very proud of. I say I was going to use that to my advantage, but at the same time, I wanted to be loved and accepted and protected like my dad and my brothers loved and protected me. I was so confused. Any kind of relationship, if I felt rejection or criticism, I couldn't handle it. I would just have to leave. I felt like I wasn't enough and that I'd left everybody down. I felt angry. I felt out of control. And sometimes I just wanted other people to hurt like I hurt. In the middle of all that, years later, in my early 20s, my mother was dying. I'd been divorced twice. My kids were living with my sister. One night I was staying down at Mom and Dad's. I'd go down there and help Dad take care of her. And Mom was so sick from the cancer drugs, and it wasn't even her. It was just almost like a shell sometimes laying there because the drugs were so strong, and she was hurting so bad. She was in so much pain. And I went outside the house, and I just screamed at the sky, and I cursed God. How? This woman loved him. She was a good Christian woman. She sang and went to nursing homes and shared the gospel. And how could he do that to somebody who loved him so much? I mean, I cursed him. And all of a sudden, I felt this peace come over me. And it was like he was saying, little girl, this is how I'm getting her through this. I'm the one getting her through this. And I'm the one that's going to get you and your family through this. I didn't listen. I didn't acknowledge him. And I sure wasn't convicted of the lifestyle I was living. Years later, Eric and I were attending church. And I unwittingly knew that I was playing Christian. I did my duty. I got up and went to Sunday school and went to worship service, whether or not I was hungover or we were hungover or not, from partying with our party buddies. But hey, I was going to church on Sunday, and I was doing what I had always been taught, ABC. Right? Right. I just we were living a double life. I was living a double life. I'm not going to say I'm talking about me. Was living a double life with the church and then our partying buddies. I didn't even realize that I wasn't even convicted at all about living like this. I was fine with it. I would still, even with my upbringing, which I am so thankful I was brought up in church, I would beg God to show me a sign that he was real. But then I didn't want to look for it. I didn't want to look at it. Look for it and let him even show me the sign. Uh, I was working at this place, and one of the ladies that worked there was in recovery, and she had gotten a vision and wanted to start faith-based housing for women, and asked me if I would help. And I said, absolutely, I'll help you. Me and my little codependent self, I jumped right up on that bandwagon. I felt right at home with these ladies. Let me tell you, I just felt like I was supposed to be there, and was there for a year or so, and then all of a sudden things just started to fall apart. Thankfully, we were at a wonderful church, and we were active in our Sunday school and going to worship service and learning more about the Lord. And but I was still we were still just attending. I mean, I was starting to get it. I was soaking it all up. But then when everything fell apart, I was thrown into a position that I had no business being in. I didn't know anything about it, but I wasn't going to let anybody down. And one night I was just laying there in the bed, and I was just throwing all of this I mean, literally laying in the bed, throwing it to God, saying, please, Lord, take this. I can't do this anymore. You've got to take this away from me. Take it. Take it. I mean, this was costing. My kids had no understanding. My husband had no understanding. I mean, me and my husband were hanging by a thread at this point. I was living there. He was living at home. It was rough. I don't even think anybody even knew how bad it was. But all of a sudden, when I was throwing that to God, I just felt this pressure and this peace just fill me and touch me. And I knew at that moment there was no denying. My heart was changed. I was begging him to come into my life. I mean, I was begging, asking for forgiveness and begging for him to come into my life. And he was there in an instant. My heart was changed instantly. And I knew from now on, he was going to be my priority. My eyes were open to my sin, and I was just broken about it. Everything changed. We would still go out, but I didn't feel right about it. And then God he started providing all these little ways out, how to get out and the next thing we knew, me and Eric were sitting here, and we said, we haven't gone out in a real long time. And then it's just like God just removed it. I mean, I knew that God had always been there for me, and I was the one that turned away from him. Sorry. I didn't necessarily change my behaviors at once, but like I said, he always provided a way out of all these sinful situations. The joy of being his for all eternity was enough. It no longer mattered if I measured up to men's standards, as long as I measured up to his. Now I communicate with him. I know who he is. I have a personal relationship with him, and no longer has he, not only has he freed me from hell, but he's freed me from my own prison that I've created and that others have created in me. But let me tell you, I'm not a victim. I am not a victim. I'm an overcomer, is what I am. I'm no more a slave to sin. My past is no longer relevant and can't be used against me. I no longer have to prove myself to this world. And you know that old codependency? I learned how to say no, and it's okay to say no. With Celebrate Recovery, I have learned that it's okay to say no. It's okay to tell people that they've hurt you. It's okay to ask for forgiveness for the people you've hurt. He has just led me through all these things that have just made my life so much better. I'm not going to say that I don't have pain and I'm don't have tough times, because I do. I'm actually in a very painful situation right now, but it's okay because um, my God is God of reunification. I don't have control over others, and it will all work out. I have faith. I have faith. So listen, if any of this was relevant to you, if any of this pulled at you or gave you some kind of hope that you never felt before, you can feel God actually tugging on you. Um, I would I would like to encourage you to pray about that. You know, ask Him for forgiveness. Ask Him to come into your life. Ask Him to uh, forgive you of your sins. And listen, that night, my pastor always gives an invitation, which I'm thankful for, and that he does that. And he always just talks about this prayer and how the prayer doesn't save you, but to pray a prayer. And I think of it as what I was doing that night in desperation, alone in that bedroom, throwing it to God, asking for forgiveness. And that's all you have to do. Ask Him for forgiveness, ask Him to come into your life, and He will. He will. And He'll change it. And if you did have done that, or just now did that, or whenever, I encourage you to go tell somebody. Doesn't have to be me. It could be my pastor, Billy Garner, but it doesn't have to be. Just tell somebody you trust and somebody you know knows the Lord, and get on that journey. God bless you.